Welcome, fellow seekers of challenge and triumph, to the SufferSooner podcast. Join us on a journey where ordinary souls embark on extraordinary endeavors. From the relentless grind of gravel to the punishing gauntlet that is triathlon, we've tasted our fair share of suffering. So fellow endurance warriors, let's lace up our shoes, strap on our goggles, and dive headfirst into the challenge, knowing that with every step, stroke, and pedal forward, we grow stronger together. Alrighty, welcome to episode 18. We are back. It's starting to get hot here in the Midwest.
Yes,
I tell you what,
it is.
It just got, the one thing I can tell you about moving to the Midwest is that you don't have very much of a spring or a fall. It's either full on winter or full on summer.
Yeah, and I think we're in summer number one right now.
Yeah, well, the first summer is what we call it. Yeah.
Summer. I think we still have a little bit of like maybe third spring is coming up, but probably not. It'll last like from the hours of 1 to 3 a.m. in the middle of the week someday. So yeah. So I think we're pretty much going to be stuck with hot weather from here on out, and we gripe about how much wind we get in the Midwest in the spring and the fall, but then in the summertime, it gets nice and hot, and it's just stale air.
Yep.
Yeah, so
never when I first moved here, I was like, oh, it's only, I'm used to, riding in the desert and, living next to mountains. You ride in the morning, there's a wind, the cold air is starting to rise from the valley, and it's going up, in the mountainside. So there's kind of like this nice breeze. And then in the evening, the cold air is coming down from the mountain, and trying to settle in the valley. And so there's usually a breeze and stuff. But here it's like 100 degrees and the air just doesn't move. It's insane.
Yeah. And the good thing about around the Midwest is, usually, especially on gravel roads, you usually end up with cornfields on both sides. So any breeze that thought it existed just goes to die in those cornfields, and then you get stuck in the middle of it. So
yeah, and then it's just like the cornfields hold on to all the moisture too. So then you get this like trapped sauna effect, really.
Yeah, we make it sound so enjoyable. So everybody that wants to move out to the Midwest, come on out. It's a great
on out. It's great. It's a great time.
You know what I mean? We were talking about this the other day. It does. We have to appreciate the one thing it does for us is it gives us some really tough training conditions, and we gripe about that. But that's also probably a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways, because we train in some pretty tough conditions, which sets us up nicely for races. And you had a pretty nice race this weekend. So.
Yeah, I had a really, really great race. It just I've said it before, and I know I've told you this many times, is I don't find enjoyment in racing. I find the enjoyment in the process of training and stuff like that. And this race was no exception. I was basically coming off of a really huge week preparing for Unbound. I think in the end I rode this week almost 300 miles. And that was including this race. And so 100 of my 300 miles was a race on Saturday on the end of the week. And, I found myself in a really good position in the beginning of the race. And so I just kept pedaling like people were chasing me. And that's how it was the whole time. I lost sight of the head guy, and we'll get more into this too. But I lost sight of the head guy, and but I knew I was in a good position, and I just kept fighting until the very end. So
yeah, and you did. I mean, we'll talk about this coming up here in a few minutes, but the conditions were less than ideal. Let's call it that. And we had a nice rollout to start, and you did a great job. You powered through. You got a second place finish overall, and then our buddy Chad got third place overall, which I'm sure he was pleasantly surprised with. I don't think he knew he was in third place when he came in. So which is crazy, because as you mentioned, like the race just broke up, and it was just a matter of survival. And then on the 50-mile side, we had some good news there too, right?
Yeah, Serena got herself a second place finish too.
Like,
Second overall female.
like 6 podiums this year for her. My goodness, she is
No
cleaning
man,
it up.
she's her. I don't know if her mantle's big enough
I know
for
she,
for all the wins.
it's funny
But
because she just spent some money on a new bike this year, and now she's gonna need to spend money on home renovations for the trophy case. So
yeah, she's gonna have to get a nice big trophy case for all that. No, yeah, I think that's. I mean, kudos to her. I mean, she like, of course, she did the 50, and she powered through, got it done, and walked away with. What was she telling us? She's like, "Oh, I gotta get done with this race so I can go take my kids to to soccer."
that's
And
dedication
like,
right there.
yeah, that's the. So she's like, I think she told me like when she finished, she just put her bike on the back of the car and drove to go pick up her son so he can make a soccer game. So, it's with her, it's just class, all the way. Like, oh, I gotta do this race real quick so I can take my kids and do their efforts to do their sporting stuff too, which is great. So
Yeah, it's awesome. She's put in a lot of work recently and had a lot of great success for it, so we're really happy for her. So congratulations, Serena. Nice work.
yep. So so here's if Humphrey's Gravel Adventure. I'll just do a brief little thing on how my day went. So we pre-rode the course on Friday. It starts off with this neutral rollout on the road, and then it goes to a gravel path. Then it goes to a horse single track, and then it goes back to road, and then it goes on to full on gravel until the end. So the main point that I wanted to do was make sure that I was in a good place going into that horse track, because it's a single track and you can't really pass anybody. They have a creek crossing and stuff like that. So what I was doing was trying to position myself that I was up near the front, at least in the first 5 guys, heading into this horse track. The guy right in front of me hit a pothole, a huge pothole, one that I hit last year. He didn't pre-ride it, I guess, or wasn't paying attention, but he went flat, just straight down, sideways, and skidded off into the ditch right in front of me. I, of course, swerved to the left where the potholes are, and I hit one, and my bars rotate forward. And I'm cussing. I'm like, not again, second year in a row. Are you kidding me? Like 2 years in a row. And so then I wrench on the bars, and I kind of get them back into a usable position. But now, since that 4th guy went down, now I'm 3 guys up. Then we get to the horse track, and the first guy, he didn't pre-ride the course, or didn't. His gears didn't work properly. He had to jump off and start running next to his bike. So then it's just me and what would end up being the winner of the race, riding in the single track, and I was behind the leader of the race going into the single track. And so we get to the creek crossing. He didn't know what to do. So I dismounted and ran across the creek as fast as I could. So now I had a chance to gap the whole field. So now I'm in the lead as we're going through this high brush, whatever, cattails.
Yeah.
It's just unmowed pasture. I don't know what it is. We're just riding through the brush, just begging for yellow fever. From all the ticks that we'd probably end up getting. So right through that, I'm in first. The guy behind me who's the eventual leader, he's like, are we on the right way? Are we going the right way? And I'm pushing so hard I can barely answer him, like, as I'm breathing as hard through my mouth as I can, because I'm trying to my idea is that I need to put a little bit of impetus in everybody behind me so that I can start to cut the groups down, so I can get a grip of
some of the weight. Yeah,
I'm trying to get some of the people that my idea is, when you're racing this, you're trying to get people who aren't punching above their weight class, who are basically who have the skills necessary to be in the front group. And that's what I was doing, is I was putting the pressure on so that the people behind me would have to chase and put in some effort to make it happen. So then we get out of the single track. The guy that eventually wins the race, he's just this big diesel engine, and I tried to stay on his wheel, and it was 300 watts for me just to sit in his draft. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I cannot hold this till the end of the race.
No free rides, buddy.
Yeah. And he basically was down an arrow and was just motoring away from me. So then I look back and I see a group of 4 or 5 guys. And so I just start to kind of just manage the effort and just kind of wait for everybody to catch me. These guys catch up to me about 20 miles in when we get to Paradise. And then they would keep attacking me on the hills. And then
it's not uncommon,
which is not uncommon, which I just think it's just the way that people, I call it like the Tour de France syndrome.
Yeah.
It's that people see these big attacks that, all these skinny climbers do on the hills, right? And so they want to attack up the hills. They're standing on the pedals and they're, motoring away from you. And it's like that. And it's like, these climbs aren't that long.
No.
They're 30-second climbs. And so what happens is, these guys drop me on the climb because I am not going to put out 600 watts to.
And Travis, when you say drop, let's be honest. When you say drop, it's like there might be like a 2 to 3 second gap between you and them, and that's just not going to be enough in this situation. We're talking mostly rollers here. We're not talking 4, 5, 6 mile climbs. We're talking, like you said, 30 seconds to get up and over them. So if they gap you by 2 seconds, the next flat, you're right back on their wheel without any effort.
So they put out these big efforts. They're standing up and they're going over the thing, but the second they go over the hill, they stop pedaling and they coast the downhill. Well, if you've ever ridden with me, that's my time to shine because gravity's on my side. And so I use physics and I just start ripping down these descents. And so my feeling then was we had 4 guys and we were basically, I was trying to get them to work well so that we could catch up to the leader and then just sit on his wheel. But it never materialized. Yeah. And by the time we got to Lathrop, which was the first aid station at mile 32.
Yep.
Yeah. We blew me and the 4 guys basically blew through the aid station because we didn't see it. I looked at where it was supposed to be. I didn't see anything. And so we just pressed on and, the rest of the race basically played out like this. We were searching for water. We got, we stopped by somebody's house. They gave us a bottle of water each. Then we saw these ducks and we used and some chickens, and they were all hanging around this like dripping faucet, well water type thing. So we filled up our water from that. And then it was basically this, as the heat started to come into play, people started falling off. And so our group of 4 eventually became a group of 3, and then it was a group of 2, and then it was just a group of 1.
Yeah.
And it was me. By the time we got to the 70-mile mark, it was just me and the leader. And I figured that I didn't know where Danny was at that time, but I knew that we had a couple people that we dropped were strong riders like Chad. And I was like, maybe Danny met up with Chad and they got a decent group and they're probably chasing me down as hard as they possibly can. Like we don't have race radio out there. The guys that run the aid station couldn't even tell me exactly where the leader was or like how long it was. But basically I just kept thinking they were chasing me. And I kept thinking that if I was suffering as much as the guy in front of me, like we're both suffering as much, like equally as much out there in the heat and the the abysmal conditions that I was hoping that maybe he would blow up and I could catch him, and then I could win. But I could not give up. I wanted to so bad. I wanted to give up the whole time. The whole time I was racing this, I wanted to give up and be done. But it just, the sweet release of death just couldn't come. so I pressed on, and I absolutely buried myself, and got to the finish. And I think I was like 10 minutes behind the leader. The closest I think I ever got to him was 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was it. So,
well, I can tell you, so just from my perspective, I mean, I know when kind of going back to the single track, I mean, I knew you guys were pushing pretty hard because, something was, I told you right after the race, and something was off with my effort from the get go. So maybe an excuse, maybe something real. I don't know, but I can just say how it felt. And I can tell you my heart rate was about as high as it's been so far this year. And you guys were definitely pushing. But even despite all that, I think there was only like a 30-second gap between you and the eventual winner and the rest of us. And I kept seeing you guys trying to reform up the road, but there was no way I was catching you. I think you guys ended up with like a 5 or 6 minute gap on me in that first aid station. And to your point, for whatever reason, that aid station wasn't as visible as it could have been. Let's just say it that way. And a lot of people missed it because I stopped there at that aid station. I happened to see, I knew where it was supposed to be, and they were off the road a little ways. And I just happened to look back after I passed it. I saw it, so I turned around and went back to it because there was no way you're going to go 40 to 50 miles to the next aid station without that stop, unless you found water like you all did. So I asked the ladies that were there, I was like, hey, where's the lead group? Like how far in my mind, I'm thinking I'm probably like 3 or 4 minutes off, which I turned out I was only like 6. But I was thinking if I'm 3 or 4 minutes off, just like you said, I'm thinking, okay, if I can just catch up to Chad, or I can just catch up to 1 or 2 of those other riders, we can kind of form a little group and we can chase. That's what's going through my head. And the ladies were like, oh, you're the first one here. First one here? How's that possible? There's no way. So she goes, well, you're a 50-mile rider, right? No, I'm 100. I'm sorry. I know I'm slow. I realize I'm not going very fast, but I'm not a 50-mile rider. 50-miler started 30 minutes after us, by the way. So so I had a little laugh at that. But you're right. It turned into absolute carnage because after that first 32 miles to the first aid station, well, what was that, Travis? Like 2 hours to 2 hours and 20-minute effort for most people, probably.
Yeah, it was 2 hours. So it basically, in the span of that time frame, it went from 70 degrees and 50% humidity to about 90, or it was at that time, it would have been 80 degrees and 50% humidity. And then by the time it hit the afternoon, it was already in the 90s.
It ratcheted
my Garmin registered 105 at the hottest, and that's because of the white gravel that reflects the sun that we ride on. And I could tell you exactly where that was. It was
we know that. Yeah, that's the thing. We know these roads pretty well, and we've ridden them in some of the toughest conditions. So yeah, the weather was extremely hot. So it's a good topic for the rest of today's podcast. But the other thing about it is it was extremely hot. But the gravel was in great condition for racing. I mean, it was zero gravel pretty much the whole way, except for a couple of key areas. But
yeah, there was one section that was just chunky, and it was the section that is always chunky that I talk about. But other than that, it was just when we were in a group, we could just fly, and we were just flying the whole time.
Yeah. Well, so you thought you were being chased.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I found that out eventually because there was only one spot, where they have this little lollipop that we go out and we do this climb, and then we come back. And so the only chance you ever get to see where your competition is on this lollipop. So I went out and I was hoping to see the leader either just barely coming back, or I asked how much time, and the thing is that he's basically on the opposite side as me, and so I couldn't tell whether or not there's a lot to be said about like being able to see what a rider looks like or how he looks when you're riding. So if I saw him and he still looked strong, then, and he saw me and I still look strong, he basically like, we basically formulate like, okay, well, this is the way it's all going to shake out. But if I saw him and he looked bad, or if he saw me and I looked bad, then he, there's a chance that I can, there's that psychological thing that like now he knows that somebody's chasing him down and the race is on. And so does he up his effort? Can he up his effort? Or does he resign to the fact that like he's going to get caught? Because this, the person that's chasing him is looking, good or whatever. So
I can just tell you, because so I ended up, I'll just kind of shortcut my race recap. I conceded to the heat of the day. I was having some pretty significant issues out on the course, to the point where I was just not safe to be riding anymore. And so I limped it into the second aid station. I think it was like mile 68 or something like that, and decided to pull the plug and race another day. But I can tell you, because I watched the rest of the riders come in that were after me while I was waiting on a ride, and there was nobody that had any energy in that day, man. It was a total carnage fest out there, and nobody looked like they had any effort to give except just enough to survive. And many didn't, because what was it? I think we found out there were only 12 people started the race. There were supposed to be like 17 or 20. It's a smaller event, but it's supposed to be 17 people, and I think only 7 finished it. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm checking the results right now.
But yeah, so it ended up
7. Yep, 7 completed it.
Yeah, so kudos to the 7 that finished it. It was an absolute miserable day, and so Travis, for you to go out there and just bury yourself to get to that second place finish was quite an effort. The guy that beat you is pretty well known in the area for winning a lot of races. He's a strong rider.
He's a very strong rider.
Yeah. So I just had to congratulate him, and couldn't do it enough, because I mean, to put that kind of effort in on a day like that was more than impressive. And then obviously, Chad and then the others that finished they're behind you guys, behind the podium. Just great job to finish it, because a lot of people didn't. So great.
Yeah, there was a high attrition rate for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about, heat cramps, heat stress, heat stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Heat exhaustion, I think, is something that people throw around, but I think it's an antiquated term now. So, heat cramps, basically heavy sweating, mild nausea, fatigue, you're thirsty, clammy skin, a little bit of dizziness. This is basically what happens when we're like just out and it's hot and we're just not having a good time. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to say like muscle cramps and all that other stuff. It can happen, not saying that it should happen. Then we have heat stress, right? Or heat exhaustion. This is where I would say this is where the heat of exhaustion is. Your heavy sweating, muscle spasm or cramps, nausea, or vomiting, dizziness or headache, and even fainting. So feeling lightheaded. This is what I feel like a lot of people had during the day for sure.
Yeah.
And then you have, the heat stroke. This is, basically if you had heat stroke, you're calling 911. Yeah. You have hot or dry skin, profuse sweating, you're confused, you're disorientated, your speech is slurred, you can get seizures and convulsions, you have a throbbing headache, very high body temperature, like maybe 104. You're basically just cooking yourself from the inside out. Like you are just, your body basically has stopped being able to cool itself, and now you're in real issues. And so I think what happened to a lot of people out there, and I saw this, I definitely had some confusion as I was going into Trimble, which is the mile, I want to say 70 or 80. Yeah. I told you about this, is an aid station worker was holding a can of Coke, which I didn't realize was a can of Coke, for about, I don't know, maybe, I was coming up this hill, so I was kind of going slow, but I would say like a good 30, 45 seconds, he's holding this can up, and I'm staring at it. And then I look down at the trail I'm riding, and I'm looking up, and I know I should know what that is, and I'm looking down and I'm looking up, and I finally, and this is happening like real time, I finally realize that it's a can of Coke, and I nod my head yes to him, and he like, and about that time he like puts his hand down like he's going to hand it to me, and of course I close the gap and get to him and grab that Coke and just open it and like slug it down. I mean, it was probably the best tasting Coca-Cola I've ever had in my entire life. It was cold, it was crisp,
nice.
it was refreshing, and I just chugged it like it was it was going out of style.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was to say that I did have a good race out there, but it wasn't without, pitfall. Like I was, yeah, there was a cost that's associated with it. And I definitely had some nausea. I couldn't eat any solid food while we were out there racing. I couldn't eat my normal, I usually eat these little fig bars that I get from Costco. And I couldn't eat any of those. I couldn't eat a full one. I basically had to like squirrel it, like little corner chunk of it, and then I would chew that for a little while, and then I would swallow it, and then I would chew another little corner, and then like it would.
Is this a fig bar or beef jerky? I don't know.
Exactly. It took me like me, when it's time to eat, I just eat. But like I shove the fig bar in my mouth and I just keep chewing. But like on that day, I couldn't put anything in my mouth without, like, if it was really big, I would just start gagging on it, and I would basically almost throw up. And it was like I was on the verge of throwing up for most of the day.
That's what she said. But yeah, I think third grade humor. So yeah. I do think, but you're right. I mean, the heat stress was, there isn't anybody out there that wasn't affected by some level of heat stress. It's just a matter of how bad it got. And I can tell you just, real quick, there was a guy when I was waiting at the SAG stop for the ride. The one of the guys that had passed this station right before me, I see him riding backwards on the course back to the aid station. He rode about a mile or so up the road, finished the little bit of a climb that gets you up towards that next aid station at Trimble, and pulled over the side of the road, started puking, like couldn't keep anything down, like it was uncontrollable. And then so he found his way back to the aid station, had to pull the plug there because it was just out of control on him. And it gets to be pretty dangerous pretty fast. I mean, you hear about it a lot, especially just in the general public. You hear a lot about, you got to watch the heat, and and you don't think much of it. You think we're all athletes, we train in this stuff, but this was also the first really hot day of the year, and man, it snuck up on a lot of people, myself included. We'll talk a little bit more about kind of some of the issues I had, because I think along with the heat, you get into the hydration side, and these things kind of play off each other, and you can go from not feeling very good to be in a really dangerous situation in a very, very small amount of time. So
yeah.
It's tough, but
yeah, I mean, that guy totally made the right call. Like coming back to the aid station and just, getting a ride in, especially if he was vomiting, just because, the next thing, your body's basically telling you like, hey man, you need to shut this down. Like right. Whatever you're doing is not good for us at all. Right. And, anytime you feel that nausea, vomiting, any of that stuff, like you should definitely just think about, shutting it down. Luckily for me, I would feel nauseous. And so then I would work to, it would basically, I would feel nauseous on the really hot parts of the course, like when we're going uphill and the air is stale. But then as we were going downhill, I would have my jersey open and just kind of have air blowing across my skin. And I would, that kind of mitigate the nausea, and like I could function again. Now if I was out there, like 9 hours, like some of these other people that finished, like would have been a different story. Like, yes, I don't think I could have been out there as long and survived as long. Like I think I could have, there is some adage into the fact of suffering sooner, and the fact that I was able to ride a little bit faster, that kind of kept the air moving a little bit better for me and cooling me a little bit more. So
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, we kind of joke a lot about suffer sooner and like the pain and the just getting the effort over faster. But I mean, it applied here as well. And I mean, you also had the fact that you were well positioned in the race. So I think that's another one of those sort of motivating factors. It's like, um, if you didn't know where you were on the course, and we've seen this happen with riders in the past, where they don't know where they're at in the course and they just want to quit. And just like you said, I mean, every pedal stroke you wanted to just be done, and you couldn't wait for it to be over with. And sometimes just knowing where you're at on the course, or the fact that you might have um, a good position or a chance for a good finish, that's that extra motivation. And so that's where you have to really be able to tease out, is this a mental challenge, or is it truly a physical challenge? and
Yeah.
and that comes with experience, but then it also, it's a very fine line too. And again, this is not something that, we're not pros out here, we're not getting paid to do this stuff. So is it really worth risking your health? And I got to think, Travis, I mean, you know your body well enough, you've done enough of these things, and hell, you lived out in the desert, so you understand heat about as well as anybody. If you thought your health was in any sort of risk, you would have pulled over the side of the road and been
Oh
done.
yeah.
But
If I would have gotten some like cramp, or I actually did vomit, I would have pulled the plug immediately. I would have been like, nope, somebody's got to come get me right away. Cause
Yep.
that's basically, I've had, heat stroke before, or not heat stroke, but I've had severe heat exhaustion where I've gotten way overheated. And, my last step before, the wheels come flying off is vomiting. If I start to vomit, it's all over. We need, you know, I'm calling everybody, every number in my book to get some help and get off that
Yeah.
course. So,
Yep.
um, you know, but that's us also knowing yourself, and knowing your body's reaction to that kind of stuff too. So and just being proactive, like again, like you said, we're not doing, like I didn't win any prize money. The first
Yeah.
guy didn't win any prize money. We're just out there doing it for fun. And if I did think that I was risking um more than my ego or whatever, then yeah, I would have definitely um pulled the plug on it. Like I have, I basically, I think when you said that, when I saw you at the finish line, I think I said you made the smarter choice. Like, you know, like I'm happy in the place that I did, and I had a chance to actually, podium a race, but like it wasn't easy, and it wasn't how I would imagined a podium would be, or whatever. And so I just, on the day, it was such a tough day. It
Oh,
was
I
just so
I saw
hot.
you afterwards. I saw you afterwards, and I mean, now I have to say again, to your credit, I mean, you managed your effort well at the end, because you did have a smile on your face, so that tells me that you had at least something left to give. I'm thinking you're probably happy it was not a sprint finish, but you definitely had take a couple minutes to get some recovery, because and everybody did again, but I mean, it was definitely a toll. And what you didn't know is I had been back at the start finish line for probably a good 20, 30 minutes, after sitting at the sag stop for at least 30 or 45 minutes, drinking cold water from a garden hose and spraying it all over myself so I could cool down. So I had like almost an hour of cool down. I was feeling pretty good. I felt horrible, horrible, horrible coming into that. But no, I mean, just congratulations to you, and to the rest of the podium. And can't say enough about the effort. But I will say that the folks that don't race in the heat a lot, or don't have a lot of experience, especially that first one of the year, just heed to the warnings. Don't. It's just not worth risking it if you don't have the experience. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe we get into some of the tips for adapting, because I mean, the first one of the years out of the way as far as the real hot days, but it's just the first of many. And what do we do? So yesterday we went right back out in it, right back into the devil's den,
Yeah.
and so we went out, and just I think one of the best things you can do is just be in the heat. You don't necessarily have to go put in a big, massive workout effort. I mean, yesterday we rode for about an hour or so, just nice casual pace, up and down the road a little bit, and had a couple of spots that you had to kind of put some effort in. But I mean, it was just go out and just be in it. That's the first step, right?
Yeah, that's totally that helps more than you can even imagine. So like most literature says that you really just need about 15 to 30 minutes of exposure. Like if you could do that every day, you're going to start to reap the benefits of being heat adapted within 2 weeks or so.
Mhm.
So usually what I try to do is I do all my easy workouts outside in the heat. So
Mhm.
like yesterday we rode bikes. It was an easy bike ride, except for the headwind on the way back. But it's like whatever. You can't really. It's the Midwest. Like,
Got
what are
to
you
stay
going to
upright. Yeah.
do? I do my easy runs outside. There's other, road cycling. Just ride my road bike outside. You don't have to ride gravel or you can ride a faster bike. So like even like if you're riding your TT bike in the heat, it's you're going to be able to cool yourself better, but you're going to still be adapting to it. Even if you do, so like the other part too is like if you do indoor training, like if you live in a place that you can't get outside or your work schedule just won't allow you to be outside, what you can do is when you do your indoor training, you get that hour done, then you go out and do like, I don't know, like a 30-minute walk in the heat. It's just that you just need to be exposed to the heat because our bodies are like really cool machines that, given about 14 to 21 days, they will adapt to the new environment. It doesn't take us very long to figure out how to adapt to the heat. So it's just all about do some yard work, but don't do the yard work in the nice part of the day. Start to do it in the hotter part of the day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately or fortunately, I've been working on some cars the last couple weeks because I have this old fleet of clunkers. So I've had to been outside working on them after in the afternoons and stuff because I train with clients in the morning. So I've been working on cars in the heat. So that's probably some of the reason why I did okay on this last weekend's race is because I was, working outside and working on cars in the heat, doing yard work in the heat, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's just it. It doesn't take very long. So we've got just under 2 weeks now to Unbound, and so for folks that that maybe just are just getting started on the heat process, it doesn't have to be every day. Just go out and be in it, and
it
don't
does have to
overdo it.
be at least 3 to 4 times a week for you to
Yes.
get.
Yes.
And so the more times you can, so if you were out there every day, the shortest time would be like 14 days to acclimate. If you're out there 3 to 4 times, then you're probably looking at like 21 days to acclimate to, you're never going to be as fast or strong as you would be, in a cool 50-degree day, but you'll get closer and closer the more heat acclimated you can be.
Yep. Yep.
And the other thing I'd always tell my athletes too is that your quality workouts, like the ones where you're like trying to build strength or speed or something other than endurance, like those are the best ones to do indoors, climate controlled. You're not going to build your best VO2 max efforts in 100-degree day. Like it just your body will shut you down
It's a
way faster than
fast path to the previous topic. So.
exactly fast pass to PR ER basically, but
Right.
yeah, more likely ER. So the best thing you can do is if you have a quality run session for us triathletes or a quality bike session where you need to do intervals, do those inside on your trainer on a treadmill, and then let's say you have an extra 30 minutes, then take your bike or go for a walk outside right after your workout. Then your body was stressed from the workout, and now it's like, oh, and it's hot. Okay,
Right.
we'll start making all these adaptations. So
Yeah,
it's just
I've seen some recommendations even like jump in a sauna, right afterwards and just sweat for a little bit longer. Just again,
mhm.
it's just all about just like any other type of exercise, quite honestly. It's just about the exposure and forcing your body to be just slightly uncomfortable, and then next thing you know, it's made the adaptations and on you go. So
Yep. You just have to give your body time to make those changes. You can't expect your body to know, it handled 100-degree heat last year and that it should be able to handle 100-degree heat this year. It has no idea what the heck you're talking about.
yeah. So I
So,
think a big key to this too is the hydration side, which is just as important, right? I mean, so you do all this
mhm.
heat training, you're out in it, and if you don't stay hydrated, your body can't build up the plasma volume and everything else that you need. And I think quite honestly, I look at the effort from this last weekend. My experience of that race was I made a couple of critical mistakes where I don't think I didn't dilute my carb mix quite enough. I wasn't anticipating the heat to rise quite as fast as it did.
But
And
so
and
what's your normal carb mix that you do?
so for me, I'll normally go right on to the 90 grams per 26 to 30 ounce bottle. 30 ounces is the bigger size bottle I normally don't use. So it's usually a 26-ounce bottle or 27, whatever those specialized bottles are.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly potent mix. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as like it's not syrup, but it's
It's
definitely on the
close.
stronger side, right? Right. Now a lot of times we go to the 1 liter bottles for these races, so I tend to just stick with the 90 grams of carbs and just dilute it with adding more water, so I got a 1 liter bottle. Except this time I made a normal liter bottle like as if it were a cooler day, because I was anticipating a little bit cooler until we got past the first aid station, maybe into the second. Again, big mistake on my part. So I was mixing that 1 liter bottle had it would have been about 115 to almost 120 grams of carbs.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, so it was a little bit too much. And so I think what ended up happening, again, I'm not a nutritionist or scientist, so somebody told me I'm wrong, but I can just tell you from my experience, I'm 99% certain that I was taking in so many carbs with that moisture, with that water, that your body needs to have the right osmolality, which we've talked about before, but also to do something with those carbs, it needs water to pair up with those carbs and get into the body, into the bloodstream. So I think what was actually happening was it was just too strong of a concentration. So I was actually making a dehydration problem worse because I
Mhm.
had too many carbs that were coming in and not enough just straight water to offset it. And so the fuel and the water was just kind of sitting. It wasn't soaking, like it wasn't getting into my bloodstream. And worse about that is in order for it to get into the bloodstream, your body has to pull water away from elsewhere in the body to help create that osmolality needed to pull the fuel into your body. So
Right.
through the intestinal system. So it it turned into a problem really fast. And what really turned me onto this was um, so basically what happens is it turned into a downward spiral where I started just loss of, like, I just felt like the power wasn't there. Like first I had this sort of moment where I could just feel all the energy just sort of almost flush out of my system. I made a turn onto a road, the heat hit me, like, and it just felt like everything was gone. And so that was the first sign that I knew I had to have some, either a nutrition or a hydration problem, but I ruled out nutrition because I had my calories.
Yeah.
So I found in my second bottle, if you ever don't ever shake your bottles right after you fill them up, sometimes you get that layer of mostly water on top. And thankfully, I had that because I took a couple of hits of that, and I could tell it was mostly water, just a little bit of the flavoring. So I ended up like getting kind of perked up from that. I felt like almost like a second win. So I was like, okay, I think I got a chance here. And that lasted about 5 minutes and it was done. And so from mile from mile like 50, the aid station was at 68. So from like mile 50 to roughly 60, I was draped over the handlebars. not really sure where I was. It was kind of weaving all over the road, and one of the guys from the early group had passed me, and he was, asked if I needed anything. Of course, I didn't know what I needed, but he was gone, and I was pretty much averaging about 7 miles an hour at that point. It was brutal. But anyway, limped my way into the finish line, but or to the sag station, but that was the end of my day. And I think mostly because, when you're dealing with the heat, you've got to factor in that you need more hydration, and you can't use the liquid carbs at the same concentration. I think you really got to make sure you dilute it down a little bit, and take that fuel in through other sources, especially now with all the gels and the isotonic gels that are available. It's like it's not hard to get calories in a way that you can still, keep your hydration levels high. So
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this after the race and stuff too. Is just really dialing in what your sweat rate is. You know, I have my athletes do this quite a bit, especially you know a good time, like, if you're just going out for an easy, let's say 2 hour ride, weigh yourself before, go, fill your bottles like you normally would, and then go out and ride, and then see what's the difference, when you come back, and just, and take note of, what's the air temperature and what's the humidity, because the humidity does play a huge factor, especially here in the Midwest. A lot of people, yeah, it's hot, but the fact that you don't have the evaporative cooling like you do in drier climates, it's really hard for you to stay cool. So you end up just dripping the sweat onto the ground, or just you're just pouring sweat out, but it's not doing anything. So your body's just continuing to pour sweat, because that's the only thing your body knows how to do. Now when you go to a drier climate, you're like, oh, I'm not sweating as much. Well, that's because it's evaporating off and keeping you cooler, and you probably feel a lot better, but you're probably sweating just as much. So it's just one of those things that, like, if you can narrow down how you sweat, and what makes, how much you sweat in the different temperatures and humidity levels, you can really zero in, how much water you actually need to carry with you, and to, stay hydrated. I know, Danny, like you do the same thing I do. Our mix is 120. I usually do 120 grams per 1 liter.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew it was going to be hot, and I suffer in the heat. So I went to 90 grams per 1 liter, and I added in about 1,000 grams of sodium mix to my bottles and stuff. So I think I went to the route that you should have went, and I think the fact that I added so much sodium, like these, the Limit brand sodium, and then there's the Mortal hydration stuff. They all have like 1,000 grams of sodium, plus like 800 grams of potassium, magnesium, all this stuff. All the whatever salts they have going on. But I think the fact that I went that route, knowing that it was going to be almost 90 degrees by noon,
right,
is the only thing that saved me. Otherwise, I think I would have been probably worse off than you, because I would have railed it in the beginning and then missed that aid station and blown up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of that comes down to race preparation. So I mean, I think that just paying attention to, like you said, I mean, knowing what the conditions of the day are projected to be. I mean, take all that into consideration, especially now with the heat of summer on us. And so lesson learned. It'll be now it's just a process of continue to adapt to the heat before we get to Unbound, and see what happens there. But I think we were just talking about our nutrition plans right before this, and I can tell you one thing that won't be a problem at Unbound is making sure I'm hydrated. So
yeah, and the thing is too, is I still had to get my calories in. So I took, like I said, I took extra goos and then I had, my solid food that I usually eat, but I couldn't eat that. So I, at the aid stations, I chugged a Gatorade. I had a Coke at both of them. I had all three of them. I had extra calories, but you have to get those calories in some way to continue on.
That's right.
Even though I changed my, calorie mix in my bottles. So just so that I knew I was going to be sweating a little bit more. So
it's good stuff, man. Every race is a chance to learn. So
yeah, that's what I say. Like, even though I had a good race, like I still learned that one, my pack gets hot, and two, and two, I was kind of worried about how much sodium I was going to take in, and I was kind of worried that like maybe that was going to make me like my mouth like thirstier or whatever. But it was basically I was testing this theory of how much sodium should I be taking in, because I really need to do one of those sodium sweat tests.
yeah.
I just haven't gotten around to doing it. I just need to go and do it and get it done. But
I'll tell you what, man,
that's for the future.
I was going to say, it's just another data point, and there's always new theories and new understandings of science that are coming along. So I think the more we can get some of those data points and toy around with it, we'll see what works for us. But for that day, man, you had the right formula. So again, nice work. So.
Yep. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, man. Suffer complete.
You got it.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please, if you like what we are doing here, leave a like, rate us, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. It really helps us grow and finds us more SufferSooner squad mates. And remember, when the finish line feels impossibly far away, we don't give up, we push harder, we dig deeper, and we find solace in the knowledge that our suffering is temporary and our resilience is forever.